Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Improve World podcast. Today we'll have Corey Spitzer as a guest. Corey provides services for the tech industry. He's a fractional CTO, Chief Technology Officer for those who don't know, and helps startups manage their technical projects. He has over 20 years of experience in software engineering and has led the engineering teams for his businesses and for his clients as well. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Could you tell you,
Excellent.
could you please tell us a little bit more about yourself and about your business?
Yeah, sure. Like you said, I have been in software engineering for over 20 years. And then the last 10 or so years, I've been exclusively working with tech startups, small early stage companies. Um, and that's a different kind of environment. We don't have the kinds of budgets or resources of larger corporations, and everybody's wearing a lot of different hats. Um I really love it. It's high impact, high visibility, a lot of pressure. But yeah, whether it's either as a co-founder, early employee, or consultant as what I do now, um, I really enjoy startup environments. And so for the last, a little over 2 years, as fractional CTO, what I do is I help um, anywhere between 2 and 5 startups at a time um, bridge the gap between the business side and the engineering side. And, that could include writing code myself. I still write code. I'll never give that up. Or managing a team, like you said, technical project management, or anything that's needed to help navigate the technology strategy, whether it's regard to hiring or pricing or architecting the solutions that are going to be offered and proving out a business model. So.
How did you start this path?
Well, so my last full-time job, I was VP of engineering at a tech startup, and um, it was going well. We had a small team of 5, and I learned a lot of new things. With every company, it's a different sort of set of challenges. Um, and I just got the entrepreneurial itch again, so I started looking into my own ideas, and I thought, I had a past, I'd done consulting in the past, so I thought I could do it better, in 2022. So I made the leap, and I know a lot of other startups that immediately needed some help, so I hit the ground running.
So, Corey, since you have experience in leading teams, we'll discuss today about some of the challenges that a business owner and a team leader could encounter in this role. And I have a few questions for you. And one of the challenges I think that a team leader face when in his role is to assign tasks. As a team leader and as a business owner, how did you assign a task? How did you decide who will be responsible for certain activities and um, who will be responsible for others? And were you in situations in which some of your team members uh, were not on board with your decisions?
Yeah, well, so like I mentioned, in a startup environment, we all have to wear a lot of different hats, and I'm sure you've seen other duties as assigned on job descriptions. That is like a daily or weekly occurrence in a small company. So there's a flexibility that everybody has to have with what they're doing. But on the flip side, the variety, at least I find, is really enjoyable. Um, but as far as assigning tasks, I try to align individual interests and goals, and their strengths and their weaknesses with what the company needs and what needs to be done. So there are a couple questions like, who can do it the fastest if it's crunch time. If it's not crunch time, then who may have expressed some interest in working on a different kind of task, or whatever is in front of us. How can we use this opportunity to up-level their skills or cross-pollinate some knowledge so that one individual doesn't have knowledge of an aspect of a product in case they leave or win the lottery or something. And, all the time we're looking to set up some peer mentoring, with that cross-pollination. So if there's an individual that has certain expertise on an aspect of a product that we're building, or some part of the code, then can we get them to brain dump or mentor another person to spread that knowledge and also have them contribute in a meaningful way? We lose some efficiency, right? But it helps grow people. So, there's a trade-off. So at the end of the day, it's kind of a last minute call. And it's very organic, and it's kind of gut feeling. And it all depends on, we have to identify how we're going to break down what we're going to deliver to divide and conquer. And sometimes, it's a negotiation. So sometimes individuals can self-select. I volunteer to do that task. If they don't, if someone really doesn't want to work on a specific task, then, again, it's a negotiation. But worst case is I just try to be sympathetic, and I say, this isn't forever. And, if it's really bad, then, hey, do this for me and I'll buy you lunch. But I think, as long as you cultivate trust and respect beforehand, then you can ask, everyone can ask a lot of their team members, including myself, right? So, but yeah, as with all of that, sometimes you just got to let them know where your thought process is, and make sure that it's all well-intentioned.
All right. You said that you take into consideration their goals and what they want to do. How do you find out their goals?
Oh, well, when you're managing people, it's really good to have one-on-ones, meetings where you check in. So I've seen some companies do it maybe bi-weekly, maybe monthly. But yeah, it's good to keep in touch with what individuals are struggling with, even if it's, if they want to volunteer, there's something on the personal side or professional side. But yeah, it's good to understand constantly where everybody's strengths and weaknesses are, and where they want to go, and where they want to grow. What do you want to work on next? What are you excited about? What keeps you motivated?
All right. And are you a promoter of the idea that we have to keep our attention on our strengths and do less of the tasks that are not a strength for us?
Well, I guess it depends on where an individual wants to grow. So, like I said, if we're under a time pressure, then we need individuals to focus on their strengths and do tasks that they're strong at. If we have some cushion, then we can use that to work on individuals' weaknesses and get them to be better. So let's say, and this goes to communication too, and presenting complex ideas to leadership and so on. We a lot of times I'll set up like a round robin system, say, hey, we have a periodic internal demo to show the CEO what we've built in the last month. Well, this month, we're going to trade off. We're going to take turns on who presents it so that everybody gets some practice in presenting. and communicating, because that is very important.
Yes, it's important for the business image and other things, of course.
Yeah.
Were you in situation in which your team members didn't meet the expectations? They didn't perform at the level you expect from them, or the level that was necessary for them to deliver high level projects?
Yeah. So when we have someone who's underperforming, I think first and foremost, I mean, even when you get in the job, it's good to understand that if you're managing people, that your boss has your back and will back your judgment calls and won't overrule you, or else you can't really be effective. But at the same time, you have to know when to go to your boss and talk about a situation of like an underperforming contributor, so that not only can you get practical advice and make sure you're on the same page, but that the boss is aware of the situation that you're handling, So apart from that, there's a really good blog post that I found recently. It is How to Help Underperformers. It is a July blog post by a guy named Luca Rossi. So if you search for that on Google, that puts so many of my subconscious thoughts out there in a nice written up format. And I think one of the key details there is just the sequence of, hey, the first time somebody is underperforming, if there's an incident, like, or they're late to a meeting or something, you always have to give them the benefit of the doubt, and give them some grace. And I think it's really important to sort of master this skill of phrasing things well, and it takes a lot of practice. So if somebody's late to a meeting, I mean, just assume there could be a family emergency. There could be, they could have been, very sick or something like that, something that they're not willing to talk about with you. So you need to stay positive, offer grace, some humility, say, and then you can continue on. If there's a repeating pattern, it's still, hey, how can I help you get past this roadblock? Maybe you missed this requirement. You didn't do the task as it was written. I would say something like, am I crazy? Did we say we wanted it to be done this way? That way it's like, hey, I'm not accusing you right out the gate. So, and then you can escalate from there. But I think the overarching tone is, we're on the same team and I care about you as a person. This is something you can't fake. So you sometimes you have to compartmentalize, superficial annoyances of personality and so on. And yeah, I think what's motivating is if I can turn somebody's performance around, that's a huge feather in my cap. And that's a motivating factor for me. So I'm like, challenge accepted. So I think that mindset would go a long way for a lot of people.
Yes. And so you try to find out the cause of that underperformance.
Yeah, and people just have bad days, and it's not really great to hold grudges. Hey, you didn't do your best on this task. Next task, I'm just going to assume you're going to be better. I sometimes I come across people that I know they're going to beat themselves up more than I would ever do for them. So all I have to say is like, just make a brief mention. Oh, okay. So you didn't do that totally the best. And that's all I have to say, because I know what's going on in their head, and I'm not going to twist the dagger and belabor the point, you know?
Right. And what did you find that are the reasons for underperformance? So could be personal issues, could be a bad period. And did you find other reasons?
So I guess generally that's a big question. It's really case by case, right? But in the past, you know, there have been drastic cases where someone has lost faith in the company or the leadership, and they're just disgruntled, and they're so used to fighting, they don't know how to stop fighting. You know, when we find a compromise and it's like, oh, you want to do things this way, great, you know, lead that effort. Some people will find other things to fight about. So that's a more serious problem. But other times, you know, it's momentary. They're just going through a rough patch, whether it's, you know, I hate this feature that I'm working on. I can't wait to get to the next feature that's more exciting. But I think, at least in the startup environment, in as much as we're all sort of building the product, because every individual is like 5 or 10% of the entire company, we all have a hand in building the entire company as well. So I tried to like communicate the North Star, the mission of the company, and how their contributions trace directly to that vision. And so, yeah, the work may not be glorious. You may be getting a talking to by an upset customer. But again, I mean, there are different ways you can think about it. It's all, you know, your attitude going in. So, hey, do you want to up level on handling difficult customers and upset people and having hard conversations? Then this is your chance.
You challenge them.
Yeah.
A little bit. And if you have this case of a person who is not content with the company, what strategies or what methods can a team leader apply to diminish this issue and increase the employee performance or take other measures?
Yeah, well, I find that, you know, once you have the basics of a company, right? It's leadership's responsibility um to frame the mission, to frame the market and the opportunity, to define a compelling mission and vision, and be able to tell that story internally and externally. So if you have that, then you need to communicate your strategy. How are you going to achieve this mission? And then it's if we have a mission and we have a relatively good idea how to get there, then we have to make sure that we're functional. There's no infighting. There's no toxic environment. So now we can work well together on trying to attack this big vision. That is easier said than done. But those are the very basic, that's the starting point. We need to know where we're trying to go. We have a decent idea how to get there, and we need to work well together. So apart from that, the sort of systemic culture, then it comes down to individual core needs. And in my experience, software engineers, in particular, technical people, they are driven by a number of things, you know, the purpose, which goes back to vision again, being impactful as opposed to just being a number in a, you know, 10,000 employee company. Excuse me. On some kind of growth path, or whether it's growing by learning new technologies or growing by learning management skills or any number of skills or knowledge, being challenged, money and opportunity, that's a motivator. Learning, playing with cool technology, all these individual things. If you need the structural part of the culture and the individual part, and that will keep people motivated and satisfied and engaged, I think.
Yeah, so you will try to combine what motivates an individual with what the company can offer to them, I
Yes,
think.
exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
because a dysfunctional member of a team can make the whole project go wrong, I think, in some cases.
Right, right. And there's a lot of situations. So one of the things that I try to do um when I'm leading a technical team, there's usually a bit of friction between like engineering and sales, let's say, interdepartmental. And the worst thing is a sort of tribalism between departments, right? Sales doesn't understand us engineers, and engineers don't understand us salespeople. And I think what's needed, you have to cultivate some sympathy. And at at my last full-time job, one of our team core values was service to others. We we need to recognize that the company needs to make money through sales and marketing, and they need to be empowered by product that we build. And you can't have one without the other. And each side has to come to the table bringing their best. So it's really easy to get discouraged or unmotivated when another department is not, the interactions with them are not great, or there's a perception that there's infighting over there on that department, or they're not being effective, or we're not playing in concert. So as soon as, I mean, empathy is one piece, but also, inside each department, you got to have good processes and good productivity and be effective among, above all things. So all these things play together, and they're
And
interdependent, and it's really tough.
I believe so. And which department do you think that is given more power in a company, the sales department or the department who make the product?
Oh, that is interesting. I've seen it both ways. I have seen engineering product-led companies, product-centric companies. I've seen um, sales and marketing-led companies, and I've seen it flip too. I've seen a product-led company flip to a sales-led company. And there are pros and cons. But yeah, I think it goes back to, as long as we're working together as a whole team and we're complementing each other, then it works. I will say that if you, so going back to what I said about the strategy piece, chasing dollar signs is not a strategy, right? So in some sales-led organizations, if the strategy is sell whatever you can, then that is not, you may have a mission, but that is not a way to get there. That is not a plan. But sometimes you're in survival mode. And if you're honest with people and say, hey, we need revenue at all costs, buckle up, then sometimes that's what you have to do to survive, especially in these small companies that are testing and changing direction and experimenting. So sorry, it's complicated.
Yes, maybe in different moments these departments can take the lead for a certain
Right.
amount of time.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
as long as it doesn't matter, whether you're product centric, sales centric, or if there's a way to be both at the same time, as long as there's respect for other people's work, right? We know that good customer support is going to serve both product and sales. Um, and and to respect what they do, and to have that respect reflected back at you, It's absolutely necessary.
How do you create respect in a company between employees?
Well, okay, so for instance, like with customer support, they are smack dab in between sales, which are promising things, product, which is fulfilling those promises, and the customer support has no way to change the promises of sales, no way to change what is delivered from product. So they are completely in the middle and powerless, and they take the brunt of any complaints.
Right.
So I think before respect, there has to be sympathy. And if that means uh, a salesperson or a product person gets on the phones and handles a customer issue, companies do that, right? Zappos, the shoe company, is famous for doing that. Um, just to experience, hey, this is another piece of the business that runs the entire engine and it's just as important. Um, so sympathy, and then out of that respect, and if you have to remind everyone on your team what another team has to deal with that you don't see, then that's a good tactic too.
Yes, because sometimes we don't understand the other person, what
Right.
is or she is going through and what are their difficulties. And
Exactly.
we see things differently. We think that it's easy for them and it's hard for us.
Yes, yes. And a lot of times, I mean, even in let's say, so I deal with software engineers, right? Um there are conflicting values. Like oftentimes a user-friendly application sacrifices security, or if you really want some really good security, it can't be that user-friendly. So even between two technical people, what did that value more? We'll have a negotiation say, I need it to be super secure. I need to be super user friendly. Well, there is a happy medium. You have to recognize that both are super important. Um, User friendliness, for a good user experience, and that may even lead to more sales. Security, I mean, that's really not negotiable. So um, that's trust with the users as well. So it's there are thousands of micro decisions and executive decisions you have to make every day at every level.
Mhm. What are some strategies or techniques that you use with your teams to increase collaboration between your team members?
I think it goes back to, that base level of empathy and respect. But yeah, you know, this idea, this core value that I set up at my last full-time job of service to others, it really was treating other departments as a customer and having
Mm-hmm.
them treat us like a customer as well. Um, and sometimes, so sometimes you have to have tough conversations too. Like, I was having a discussion with a customer support person, and he was pushing us to deliver something that really wasn't necessarily going to work. And I kind of got a little frustrated, and I flat out had to tell him, like, hey, we're talking about this because I'm trying to protect you. If you sell this and we can't deliver, then we're not the ones getting yelled at on the phone. You are. So I don't want that to happen to you. Um, so again, it goes back to empathy. If you drive um your attitude, if you have empathy, then you want your counterpart in another department to do a good job. What's it going to take to do a good job? If you're a good collaborative partner, you know, um, providing tools that you can provide, information, data, um, that will make you be better at your job in another department. That's any opportunity to do something like that, I attack.
On another note, What are the things that you observed that decrease an employee motivation and engagement?
So I think if you have a perception that there is a lack of company vision or product vision, and we're just sort of there's whiplash and changes in direction all the time, then it's like, what am I really building? What's my purpose? Right. It goes back down to those individual needs, being impactful and purpose and being challenged and learning new things and growing in the area I want to grow in, not doing the same task that I've been doing. And, again, culture, having a non-toxic culture and everybody getting in the trenches together, especially if you're leading, you need to be in the trenches. You need to make sure that everybody feels that you're in the trenches with them. We're working together on this. You have a problem that's blocking you. It's my job to unblock you. I'm the leader of a team should both hold individuals accountable, but also enable them to succeed. So there are all these interactions that define the culture and relationships that keep people feeling good about what we're doing. And also, money solves a lot of problems. So whether
Always.
it's, raises or more sales and the company's doing well, everybody wants to be part of a success story. So
What are some ways in which you compensate your team members, how you recognize their contributions?
well, so it's really good to understand how every person responds to different ways to recognize them. Some people don't want attention drawn to them with public accolades and all company announcements because they're just really modest or introverted. Um, Others are just monetary bonuses are good. Team building, going out for bowling, taking a break, extra vacation days. Again, it's kind of like for every person on the team, you kind of have to keep track of notes. And these come from one-on-one meetings and check-ins, where their strengths, where their weaknesses, how do they like to be recognized? And what's driving them. If they're driving for money or status or building that really cool thing or knowing a lot of, knowing more than most people, then any way that you can feed that also aligns with what the company needs, it's a win-win, right?
Mhm. How do you find out what they want?
Sometimes you just have to ask. Say, hey,
Mhm.
one of my clients I've been working with for a while now, we're an all company meeting, and all company means like 12-ish people. Hey, let's go around the room. How does everybody like to be recognized? Do you like being called out? Do you like it in written form? Do you like in personal notes and emails? Do you like bonuses or lunches or more responsibility or so on? If you can't, there's no harm in asking,
Mhm.
because it's all well intentioned and it's they understand why you're asking. Because it's also a way on the flip side to set a boundary for the individual to say, I don't want to be called out in front of the whole company. It makes me uncomfortable. It feels awkward. If I don't ask, then I won't know that. So
Right. For
when in
sure.
doubt, just ask.
Good advice. What was the biggest challenge that you encounter as a team leader?
Oh, okay. Well, there are sometimes you'll encounter an individual that, just will not buy into the company vision, right?
Mhm.
They think that the CEO is making all the wrong decisions, and for other reasons, maybe it's not that, maybe it's something else. They're just not satisfied. Maybe it's come from a series of bad experiences with the company. Maybe it's something else, but all you can do is talk to them about what the problem is, why it's a problem, give them opportunities to grow out of it, to change. In this blog post that I am in love with, this how to help underperformers blog post, there's a whole framework of, I think it's like 7 conversations that you can have of varying levels of severity, I would say. But at the end of the day, what I learned the hard way is you cannot tolerate a toxic person, because it's going to affect the whole team. It's going to bring down the whole team. And you cannot, a lot of companies, they have really good, well-defined processes for interviewing and hiring and onboarding. But for some reason, the disciplinary toolbox is not spelled out. So it's good to have that figured out before you need it. And I think it's, you have to decide sooner than later when somebody who may have been a good fit in the past is no longer a good fit. And maybe that means changing roles in the same company. Maybe it means they need to be let go. But that is a hard decision. And the only option that is not feasible is to let it simmer and fester for months or years. Because it's never worth that tiptoeing around, beating around the bush for that extended period of time. Because when you rip the Band-Aid off and they get so frustrated they quit, or you have to let them go, you find out on the other side, we should have done this sooner. It wasn't as bad as we imagined it to be.
Yes,
and you know what? That kind of person, they'll be better off by being let go too. Maybe they just can't do it for themselves.
Yes, I agree. I think that these situations have to be handled because they affect the other teams and also the results of the company. Their moral can decrease. Seeing this person who is not engaging, who is complaining all the time, and who has a bad attitude.
Right. Yes. And also, I've been on that side of the fence too. I've grown since. I used to have like a really bad attitude. But also, I also know sometimes I need to leave the company because I don't believe in the company anymore. So I'm going to help everybody, including myself, by self-selecting out. So it works both ways. But it just doesn't make sense to stay unhappy, whether you're the employee or the employer, for an extended period of time.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Corey, for sharing with us your experiences. I'm sure that startups and young entrepreneurs can benefit from your advice and your experiences. One last question: how can people learn more about you and about your work?
Oh, sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Shoot me a message, connect with me. It's Corey Spitzer on LinkedIn. Otherwise, my website is flyhighventures.com, which also has a link to my LinkedIn profile. So feel free to reach out. And thank you.
Thanks again. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, really good talking to you. Thank you so much.